Hello ladies and gentlemen, here on 5-color combo. I thought I would do a little deck tech before jumping into a game or two with the first of many to come budget EDHs for anti-Geo. So here we are sitting in front of an Ezuri Claw of Progress EDH, and it has a little infect theme going on. So yeah, the basics are pretty much Glistener Elf, Blight Mamba. All these little infect creatures have the synergy with Ezuri that they trigger him, like they usually have power 2 or less, so you get an experience counter when you play them, and also him buffing a infect creature by say 5 points or 4 points is usually enough to make it a 2-hit monster. Like you can attack with a 5/5 Blight Mamba, and if they let it through 2 times, they're dead. So yeah, that's basically the base synergy of the deck. The star of the mana base though is Rogue's Passage, of course. You can let just for 4 mana, you don't have anything to do on your turn, or you really have to kill one guy, and then you just passage your Blight Mamba, and it's like 6/6 infect, and you hit someone and he's dead. So I've picked out a few main players of the deck. So the rest of the deck is pretty much like enables Ezuri some answers to things like Frozen Grip and some draw spells. And other than that, like Ezuri synergies like Cold-Eyed Selkie and stuff, and some draw spells, and that's pretty much it. And like, yeah, proliferate, which is both good with the experience counters and poison counters on players you want to kill. Alright, so the stars of the deck of the infect strategy, or the Ezuri strategy, are obviously Blighted Agent. He's unblockable, he has infect, he's cheap to play, he does pretty much everything the deck wants to do, as does Thrumming Bird. It has evasion, it proliferates the poison counters on every player, so if you manage to poison every of your every opponent of yours, it attacks for 1 poison on each player if you have 1 player where you can get through. Then Fist of Ironwood is surprisingly good. It gives it an infect creature trample, which is pretty relevant, and it triggers your Ezuri with the 2 tokens. So 2 mana, get 2 experience counters, give an infect creature trample, then you can at least +2/+2 your infect creature, because you have at least 2 experience counters after playing this. And then you attack someone for like 3 infect, 4 infect, whatever, with trample, and even if they have a solemn or something, they can only jump for 2 toughness instead of the full 4. Dustbolt Recruiter is a card I've come to like in pretty much every creature-heavy EDH. You can play him early, he can get in for some damage, although in this deck, of course, it's not too relevant. And if he flips, you can cast your cheap creatures even cheaper, and he can refuel your hand late game. So if you draw him with the Ezuri out, for example, you get an experience counter, and then you dump a ton of mana into him, get like 3-4 creatures, and then you're good to go again after a master removal or something. Yeah, so Fertilid and Fathom Mage are pretty much the same. They synergize with Ezuri with his +1/+1 counters, whereas Fertilid, you have to dump in some mana as well to get additional lands into play, which is especially relevant if you have, for example, a Viral Drake out. You can proliferate a ton. So Fertilid, definitely something to consider. He also fixes, of course, so if you're only on green lands, you can get out some islands with it. Fathom Mage, pretty much in every Ezuri list I ever saw. Yeah, put 3 counters on there, get 3 cards. That's pretty strong, I'd say, and he's really cheap online, so yeah, definitely a good pickup for the deck. Hunter's Prowess, and also a very good card, I feel. Trample +3/+3, and you draw usually a ton of cards. And for a deck like this, where budget is a concern, of course, and these creature decks sometimes run into trouble against mass removal. You deploy some creatures, mass removal comes down, you suddenly have no hand, you have no creatures, nothing to do. Here the Hunter's Prowess helps a ton. You play your creatures, you Hunter's Prowess once, you draw a ton of cards, and then you can wait for the mass removal, and if they don't play it, they'll lose. Like, that's pretty much it. Then we have Corrupted Conscience. This is an interesting card. I feel like in 50% of the cases I've Corrupted Conscience my Muldrifter or something, just because you don't have to enchant a creature you don't control. You can enchant your own Muldrifter just as a 5 mana give enchanted creature infect enchantment, and sometimes that's pretty well relevant. Like this Muldrifter, he will get big with Ezuri, and he has flying, so that's good. And then you give him infect, and suddenly he's a pretty big threat. So sometimes I will play this to steal opposing creatures, to disrupt their combo, something like that, or just get a big haste dude from someone and attack them with infect. So this is a pretty good card in this deck. Like in every infect strategy, you can run blue, and you should run this because it's very versatile. It doesn't look like it. It does look like Mind Control plus infect, but it's it's definitely better than Mind Control, I feel. Then Phyrexian Swarmlord, the one infect creature I want to highlight, besides the Blighted Agent, of course. He triggers Ezuri with his upkeep trigger, so this is very good. If you can get him to stick with Ezuri out, you get basically an experience counter per poison counter your opponents have, and additionally, he is a big infect beater, and he creates additional infect beaters. Yeah, Muldrifter we already talked about. This is a very big EDH staple. So Muldrifter it is. Like, he triggers Ezuri, he draws 2 cards, he's a flyer, you can evoke him and still trigger Ezuri. It's like, there's nothing he doesn't do. And as I said, with Crafted Exoskeleton or Corrupted Conscience, he can even infect people. Alright, and some of the more expensive cards of the deck, Ezuri is pretty expensive online, so a lot of the percentage of the budget goes to Ezuri. He's like 4 point something ticks, so it's basically 50% of the budget goes to Ezuri. But Sword of Feast and Famine, like 2.8, I think. I think it's worth it. Like, you can get really fast with this because you can tap out for something, attack, then play another thing. It gives +2/+2. It makes your creatures harder to block. It makes the creatures harder to remove because of protection from black. And there's a ton of things this does, and I feel like it's worth it getting the Sword of Feast and Famine for the 2.8 ticks. I feel like it's worth it, as goes for the Lightning Greaves, even though the Lightning Greaves are all way less expensive. They're like 0.3 ticks, I think, so 30 cents. That's like, for Haste and Shroud and Equip 0, this is really worth it. World Rogue is not too expensive, but it's one of the more expensive cards of the deck. As I said, like Sword of Feast and Famine plus Ezuri makes a lot of the budget. That's an interesting card, I feel, because with Ezuri out, he gives 3 experience counters, which is a lot, plus the 2 Thopters tap for unblockable. So you can play this, tap the Thopters, make your infect dude unblockable, go to combat, trigger Ezuri, put some counters on there, and get in for unblockable infect. So pretty strong card for the deck. Definitely pick it up, 0.13 ticks or something. So yeah, way worth it, way worth it. And also interesting, you can even tap, like, it's worded untapped artifacts. You can equip a creature with Lightning Greaves and Sword of Feast and Famine, and then tap these 2 equipment to make it unblockable, which is pretty hilarious, but it works that way, so why not do it? Thassa, 0.5 ticks. I think it's a good pickup. It makes your creatures unblockable. It scries 1 each upkeep. It's hard to remove. The scry 1, after a while, it feels like you've drawn an extra card. So some card advantage in a budget deck is always good. And yeah, the Illuvian Primordial, I pretty much played in every blue deck I've ever built, because it just does things you just want sometimes. All right, so it was a long deck tech, I feel. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that the purpose of each card is pretty clear. The Rage Termite triggers Ezuri, Biden draws cards, Fuel is protection plus proliferate. Yeah. Not much else to say. Why don't we jump into some games? I will jump into the queue. See you guys then.